Eilish's acting debut, Louis Theroux infiltrates the Manosphere, and how linked are class and taste.
I'm Maggie Zhao.
And I'm Jasmine Wallace.
And you're listening to Culture Club, where two writers and editors chat about pop culture, current affairs, the internet, and our lives.
Today, we're on the lands of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nations.
We would like to pay our respects to elders past and present and extend this to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander listeners today.
What's on for your weekend, Mags?
What's on for my weekend? Got like a friend's birthday that's going to be fun. I booked in Pilates for Saturday morning and I don't usually do it on Saturday, so that's going to be fun.
Me too.
Ooh,
That's funny. We've
something in
both
the air.
chosen Pilates on Saturday.
Love that. And then not much. To be honest, it's good. Oh, sorry, boring, but freelance life is like you do work on weekends, so I'll be doing that too.
Yeah.
You?
Yes. Tonight I'm actually going to Sense of Self for a massage and a bath. I got like the 3-hour package. And it was actually a gift from my old pedestrian TV team,
so
like a
nice.
farewell when I left. And I haven't used it yet. That was in like August. And so I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I need a massage. Like I want to go to Sense of Self. And I was like, wait, I have a voucher. So I'm doing that at 5:00.
That is
Perfect
so
way to start the
lush.
weekend.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm so excited for you. Quite envious. I love a massage. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? And I've noticed on socials as well that you've been posting some more content of your trip to Cambodia. Like when we
Mhm.
spoke about it on the podcast, it was all very like secretive and you're like, I can't say much. So
Yeah.
can you tell us more?
Of course, that was so funny. So at the end of January, I went away for a week, but I couldn't tell the details, and now I can. I kind of loved having a secret. It was fun. It was so lovely. I went to Cambodia with Intrepid Travel, and that was with friends of the podcast, Lucy Neville and Aurelia St. Clair, both people who have been interviewed on Culture Club previously. And it was so fun. It was a week-long women's expedition, which is like one of their women's only trips, and we got to kind of trial that out for the first time. And it was just so beautiful. And it's been nice to reflect back on like the pictures and the videos. I just had such like a fulfilling and like wholesome time.
Do you have a highlight?
There was this time where we were like bike riding through rice paddocks and like we went through these fields and there was like cows that was sunset time and you could hear like monk like chanting in the background and it was just like what? It was like a speechless moment.
So
that was really
amazing.
special.
And so this is like a woman's trip that people can book as well.
Yeah, that's true. They've got a few new locations. I went to India with Intrepid on a women's expedition a few years ago, and that was so good because, like, yeah, why not travel, especially with strangers, like other women? Like,
Yeah.
it's such a nice experience.
Do you enjoy traveling that way?
Yeah, I did. Listeners might know, like I went to Vietnam last year and that was through Intrepid and it was a group of strangers. It wasn't women's only. And I was like quite nervous being like, oh my God, who's going to be on the trip? But it made it even more special to have like this time capsule of a place with strangers. It like almost made that memory so much stronger because that's the only time I know those people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I laugh because you were like, I was in India, I was in Vietnam, I was in Cambodia.
Yeah, sorry. I've had a very nice travel
years.
few years. I think this year I'm more low-key, so I'll probably be here. Can we talk about a previous White Boy of the Month of the podcast, Cody Simpson?
Of course, always.
He's back. He's back in our Instagram feeds, TikTok feeds, and he gave this interview confirming his breakup with Emma McKeon recently. Did you see this?
Yes, but I also saw some pap photos of him with another woman like
Oh.
yesterday.
Who's
saw a
this
photo.
woman?
And all the comments were like, damn, he moved on fast. But, you know, we don't know details of when they actually split and when it was made public, blah, blah, blah. But he is back in our kind of like feeds. And I got served that on the algorithm his like new music project.
What? Wait, there's a whole new project? Like he's not
Yeah.
going under Cody Simpson?
Like it was a new account. It had a blue font
Oh.
and it was Cody Simpson, but in sunglasses. So it wasn't like super recognizable.
This is giving KJ Appa.
Yeah, kind of, but like less extreme, I guess.
Yeah.
Of, what's his name? Mr.
Mr. Fantasy.
Mr. Fantasy. Yeah.
So Cody and Emma, they are both professional Australian swimmers. It's like the most iconic side quest of a musician ever. It's like quite amazing what this man can put his mind to and accomplish. And they were actually together for 4 years, which is a long time. And so reports circulated last month that the pair had split sometime towards the end of last year, but like it wasn't fully confirmed until now.
On the podcast, Cody said The relationship ended up being a really beautiful thing for us to do together, moving in together and living that lifestyle. Having Emma in my life to support me through my goals and vice versa, we were able to be that for each other and lift each other up. She's a special person.
So he said this on the podcast, We Need to Talk with Paul C. Brunson. And then he also talked about their lifestyle as swimmers and like professional athletes. And he said, it's a lifestyle that's hard to understand. I feel it would be different to be with someone who isn't doing it while you're doing it. I love the way he spoke about their breakup. I think this was so respectful, so full of love. He also didn't say the reasons for the breakup, which I think is totally fine. And I respect the privacy. But I was like, wow, if an ex talked about me like that, I was like, it was really wholesome. Am I just like in the Cody kind of like fantasy? Like everything he does is amazing. But I think it was really nice.
No, that is nice. It's very mature, I think. Like
Mature.
once you basically are out of high school, you get a bit older. I think that you can leave relationships knowing that it's not forever. Like you said, like 4 years, that's so long, but like a relationship doesn't have to be forever or for like 10 plus years or marriage to be like important. Not everything is like end game.
Mm.
You can just like have 4 years with someone and like they support you in that part of your life, which is Cody's swimming career. And now he's back with a music career. So who knows?
Speaking of career changes, though, Billie Eilish is set to have her first acting debut soon. Whoa.
Billie is in advanced talks to make her acting debut in the adaptation of Sylvia Plath's classic novel, The Bell Jar, which is just like a quintessential read, I feel like, for teenage girls, especially during the Tumblr era.
And have you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry I haven't again. Me and my deficit of classics. But I know it's like quintessential depression sad girl novel.
Sad girl
not to
novel.
like diminish the, I guess, how important that text is. So if you aren't too aware of the novel, it's actually the only novel that was written and released by Sylvia Plath, who's a poet. It was actually published in 1963 and it's a semi-biographical work. So it charts like a young woman's descent into mental illness. And it definitely, of course, mirrors her own personal experience as well. Sylvia actually died by suicide just a month after the book was published in the UK. I actually didn't realize it was a recent work, like the 60s, not long ago. I thought it was a bit older.
And it feels really modern too. I remember I read it when I was 18 in 2014 and I was enthralled, like as if it was a modern novel. I kind of have been thinking about revisiting it lately. And one of my like total treats, like if I get a bonus or something like that, every time I go to a bookstore, I see like the hardback cover, like the beautiful, like embossed Bell Jar Sylvia Plath book. And like, I never do it. I never take the plunge. But if I think about it so much, I should just do it.
Do it.
Just to have on my bookshelf.
And do it before the film comes out because then like prices will skyrocket. So more about this movie. It's attached to the director, Sarah Polley, who is an Oscar winner. She's created Women Talking and Away From Her. And Billie is set to play the lead character, Esther Greenwood. Billie is incredible. I think the amount of success she has achieved at such a young age. And she's also like forayed into the movie world before through soundtracks. So she wrote for Barbie and also the James Bond, like No Time to Die song. So it's like not the biggest stretch. But I mean, acting is quite a big stretch from music.
I also think it's interesting that Billie has like she's in talks for this particular role because it is such like a seminal novel. It's so like sad girl novel vibes. Like it's pretty prolific. So there's quite high expectations of it, I think. That's probably why it hasn't really been adapted, like at least in the mainstream before.
Well, I want to just talk to you about that one because there's only been one major adaptation of this, and that was in 1979. What was interesting when I was reading up about it, there's been a few times where like announcements of adaptations have been made and then it's just like fallen apart. So one of the biggest adaptations that was going to come to fruition was Kirsten Dunst was going to direct this and have Dakota Fanning star in it. And that was announced back in 2016, but then it fell apart. So
when this news came out this week about Billie, I saw a tweet that was like, never forget what they took from you, like with the headline from 2016. Oh, that would have been incredible, like Sofia Coppola vibes.
Yes. I'm
keen for this. I'm keen to see Billie actually acting. I mean, it's not been confirmed. We're talking like she's been like cast.
But it's like, it's been reported. Like it's so close. Like some people are leading with the headlines. Like, yeah, she is. So I think it's going to happen.
It does seem like there's a little bit of a trend at the moment or some pattern recognition going on with people and like influencers, musicians using acting as a way to like legitimize their career. Our fave, Emma Chamberlain, the internet's darling, is also debuting in a feature film.
Oh my goodness. When we saw the trailer drop for this like a month ago or something, I was like so shocked. I feel like Emma Chamberlain has been a little bit more quiet recently. I feel like she's obviously still doing her podcast, but less so YouTube. Like, what is she getting up to? And it seems like she's getting into acting. So there is a new movie coming out. It's called Forbidden Fruit. It's actually out March 20, so very soon. And it's a horror comedy. And it's actually got quite like a star-studded cast. It's got Lola Tung from Summer I Turned Pretty, Lily Reinhart. I was going to say from Riverdale, but she'd probably hate that. Victoria Pedretti and Alexandra Shipp. So like cool, like women-led cast.
Are you keen to see Emma in a movie?
I'm keen to see her. I think she's got quite like a smaller role. Like she's not one of the main characters, but she does make her appearance in the trailer. I'm intrigued by the concept. I'll tell you about it. It's a horror comedy. It's set in a Dallas shopping mall where the employees of a Free People knockoff called Free Eden run a witchy femme cult in the mall's basement after hours.
This sounds so cool.
My thing is, I feel like we've seen a lot touch this genre of like feminist satire, comedy, horror, like commenting on modern landscapes. And sometimes I think the execution can fall flat. I think a lot of movies, we didn't talk about the one called Slanted. I don't know if you saw that rolling around. It's coming out soon. It's kind of like The Substance, but it's about an Asian girl turning white. Anyway, but it's like people have really cool concepts, but I don't think a concept is enough to like hold up a film just because like it's a cool story.
And sometimes I think these types of films can veer into like satire or parody when they're not meaning to. Like they're trying to have a meta take. And then they can often, I find like if it's not done properly, it can feel more like a satire of women and of like the modern era.
True. And I feel like for me, the example that's coming to mind is The Substance, right? And I really enjoyed that movie, but I'm like, it's not enough to just show the thing and then make audiences assume that you're critiquing it. Just because you're showing it doesn't mean like you're inversing the stereotype. I was just like, I needed more. I don't know. We're getting too much into it.
We're deeping it. On the same topic, in last week's episode, we discussed Kylie Jenner's acting debut in The Moment, which we thought was good. Critics, like not critics, but like people online.
People were saying critics were liking it.
Well, saying like she was a standout moment of the film. She this week had a profile in US Vanity Fair where one of the topics was her wanting to pursue acting even further.
She actually said that she'd gotten a few scripts across her desk, but nothing had like fully piqued her interest yet. And that she's really interested in comedy. She was like, I really like comedy. I think I'm good at it. Maybe next time I talk to you, I'll be the lead of an action movie. So cute.
Two things, like I really like comedy, but maybe I'll be the lead in an action movie.
I love that. It would be so funny if she became like this Oscar-nominated, incredible like actress of the generation while Timothee Chalamet is just like fuming in the corner.
Oh my God, that would be crazy. Kylie's the one giving like shout outs to Timothee on stage.
My partner of 3 years.
Blacklisted from any artistic movies. This week, Mags, I saw that you went to the ballet. One of your favorite things to do.
Yeah. In your face, Timothee Chalamet.
I thought you were saying in your face to me.
Oh my God,
because I'm never on the ballet list.
I need to take you. I took my little sister this time, but I'll take you.
You took me once, like last year, I think, which was incredible. I was like so honored. I think I actually had to ask you. I was like, next time you go to the ballet, can I please be your +1?
No, so as we had this conversation, I was like, I remember that message and I was like, did I take Jazz? So you can come again. And it was so fun. It was a beautiful production. It was with the Australian Ballet and Bangarra Dance Theatre. They're two of Australia's most like prestigious dance companies, and it was like a collaborative work called Flora. So freaking good. Shortest run ever. Like it kills me that it's incredible production and it goes for like 9 days. And I was like, what?
So it will be on when this episode goes
Yeah,
out.
but like only for a little bit. So
we'll link it anyway.
Yeah, you guys should really go. Ballet is such a beautiful thing that if I'm being real though, and we're going to get into more on this later, I've only gone because I've been invited through PR and media. Like I'd never otherwise gone. Actually, no, I went once with my older sister. She took me as a birthday present when I was quite young. But this is a big topic of conversation this week. Everybody's got opinions about ballet and opera.
Of course, this is off the back of the Timothee Chalamet discourse that's happened in the lead up to the Oscars. Timothy kind of definitely put his foot in his mouth during an interview with Matthew McConaughey at a CNN Variety town hall at the end of February, which was kind of like an Oscars style like interview, just like learning more about Timothy and Money Supreme that he's nominated for.
We'll play the clip that's going viral now.
People, and I've done it myself, to go on a talk show and go, hey, we got to keep movie theaters alive. We got to keep this genre alive. And another part of me feels like if people want to see it like Barbie, like Oppenheimer, they're going to go see it and go out of their way to be loud and proud about it. And I don't want to be working in ballet or opera or, things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive, even though no one cares about this anymore. Yeah. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there. I just lost 14 cents in viewership. But damn, I just took shots for no reason.
So the irony of his comments was not lost on many fans who were really quick to point out that both his sister, his mother, and his grandmother were all professional ballet dancers.
Yeah, so he's got family that are so tied into the business. He himself is an artist. He works in the arts. And to have a statement that just like criticizes or like belittles so many working artists, it was like, what are you doing? Why? He did in that clip that we played. He realized his mistake very quickly.
As he's like saying it, as it's like tumbling out of his mouth, I think he like forgot that he was, I don't know, on a camera or something or in public, because you can see his like eyes like regretting it so quickly. And Matthew McConaughey is like trying to stop him with his eyes. Like, what are you doing?
Well, then he was like, yeah, I got it.
I feel like he did that because Timothy was obviously like embarrassed like pretty quickly. But then why did he double down and be like, I just lost 14 cents in viewership? Like that was an even more of a scathing comment, I think. Like he could have been like, oh damn, I gave them strays or whatever he says. Why does he kind of like double down, which I feel like is quite a bro thing to do?
Even though he knew what he said was kind of wrong, he's actually said comments like this previously. So in 2019, he went on the Graham Norton show and said, quote, he was kind of getting scared when I was younger that maybe cinema was becoming like opera or something, like an outdated art form or something. Later that year, in a different interview, he said, you start working on movies and you start acting, and I start to get the sense that opera or ballet or something is kind of a dying art form.
I saw a clip on TikTok of all of these like clipped together, and someone comments like, what is his problem? Like, what is his vendetta against, like, who hurt him in opera and ballet?
It's like almost line by line similar as well. And look, that's 7 years after the fact he originally said that on the record.
So are you surprised by the backlash? And like, why do you think this hit a nerve? We saw loads of opera houses and ballet around the world kind of like giving like discounts or like making TikToks in response to this. It's actually been probably really good for the industry.
I agree, because I'm like, when's the last time we talked about ballet or opera in the mainstream news? We don't.
Which kind of is his point, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think there is a little bit of truth to it. I think it was disrespectful the way he said it, but you can't say he's totally wrong.
Yeah, no, I understand that too. That's why I think I was surprised at the public backlash to this, because I'm like, the average person doesn't care about this. Let's be real. I think that people really just took offense because people want to be appreciative of the arts and be supportive, at least in theory, perhaps not in practice always.
That's such a good take. Like, how many of the commenters do you think are actually going to opera or ballet?
Yeah, and we'll get into why as well. Like, obviously, it's a financial thing. There was this article called Timothee Chalamet is Right About Ballet and Opera by Chris Murphy in Vanity Fair. We'll read out a bit of the piece. He says, quite frankly, everyone needs to get a grip. Were Chalamet's comments graceless? Sure. Inelegant? Yes. Even a bit rude and dismissive? Well, yeah. But was anything Chalamet said incorrect? Not in the slightest. Opera and ballet are no longer a predominant part of mainstream culture. Comparing the modern-day impact of opera and ballet to that of film would be like comparing curling to NFL football.
They continue, this is the fate Chalamet wants movies to avoid. Art becoming a playground or hobby meant only for the elite. And newsflash, that's in danger of happening beyond the fine arts. Between the rise of AI, the consolidation of major movie studios, and the streaming era temptation to watch everything from the comfort of your couch, Theatrical cinema, as we know it, is in danger of going the way of opera and ballet.
Completely. And that leads us to the conversation of the link between art and class more broadly. I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that there's obviously a link with your socioeconomic standing and maybe the art you consume or like your interests that you're afforded, because access and wealth are big influences when it comes to interests and hobbies. Like, people who go skiing, like you have to have a level of wealth to access a sport like that. That's just a fact. Can I say that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'm like scared. It's like it's hard having conversations about class, I think, because there are so many like sweeping generalizations that you might make, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Obviously, it's much more affordable to go to the cinema, even though cinema tickets are like, how much now? $25 maybe for an adult ticket at like a mainstream cinema.
Mm.
That is obviously more accessible than $100+ on ballet or the opera. The other week, Laurie and I went to, this is more like theatre, I guess, or orchestra stuff, but like on a random Saturday, we went to see a performance at the Arts Centre Melbourne.
Oh.
And I swear this is not like trying to brag, but I remember being like, it was one of Laurie's like favorite movies in like played live,
Nice.
whatever. And we bought the tickets and I remember being like, oh my gosh, this is like such a privilege. Like what a life we live to just on a random Saturday wake up in a major city and be like, I want to consume some art today, and then go down the road and like watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this to be like, look, we're so great, but it was more just like, wow, this is a privilege and like not something that I think you or I take for granted, especially like the opportunities that we get through like PR and media as well.
I completely agree with you. Like, it's not a basic necessity of living, but it is something that nourishes our soul. And I do feel very lucky to have that disposable income to spend on this. I will say though, like, one of my biggest expenses is paying for experiences like this, like seeing shows. So it's something I do invest in because like I love it and it doesn't come cheap. I was thinking about this conversation actually before all this Timothee Chalamet discourse kicked off, because Ed Sheeran, like we talked about last week, he was in Melbourne. And I found it interesting that as I was around the arena that he was performing at, his fans, like many artists, like his fans kind of look similar. There's a similar style of dress, a similar perhaps like demographic that gets drawn to concerts. And I was thinking, how interesting is that that is still the case in our quite democratized era of music specifically, where you don't have to go out to buy a CD to listen to an artist, but you can listen to it for free on YouTube, Spotify, other streaming platforms. Yet, it seems that like similar groups do congregate to similar music still. And like perhaps I don't want to be making sweeping generalizations around class, because obviously I don't know how much like money these people are making, but it feels like there are still similar socioeconomic groups who listen to certain types of music. So stereotypes are like, wealthy people listen to classical music or jazz, and perhaps people of a lower class or working class listen to pop music. Isn't it interesting that this still stands?
I think it is interesting that, yes, that's still a thing. But I'm also noticing, I don't know if you are too, with the rise of anti-intellectualism and with the cost of living crisis, I'm finding online a lot of the commentary. Don't know if these are teenagers talking, which is something I always try to keep in mind, especially when I'm looking at TikTok. But people who like attend things like art or like theater are kind of being seen as like elitist now.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it is an internet thing versus a real life thing. I think that's definitely trickling down. I think the criticism of someone being pretentious is something that's relevant now. You hear people, even if someone's speaking on TikTok and using like bigger words, people are like, whoa, slow down there, Shakespeare. Like there is a distaste for that. But I don't know if that's just like general internet culture. I don't know how much of that applies to real life. Like, I don't think people are seeing people walk into an art gallery in person and being like, whoa, like calm down there.
You know that I've been called posh before?
Because your accent. Because
Do
you're
you
like
think?
a bit British. And like you dress chic. Those are like the only two things that come to mind.
Yeah, I thought it was funny because like the way you think of yourself is not how you're perceived by others as well.
I think also to that point, I get called that as well.
Like, have you been called pretentious before?
Yes, because bring up Tom. Bring up Tom. I love criticizing things in a healthy way. So when I'm watching something or if I'm eating a meal out, I want to talk about why I like it or I don't like it. And sometimes Tom's like, oh, he's a lover boy. He's like, this is so good. He's like, this is the best thing ever. And I'm like, but actually no. I want to hear you actually dissect that or tell me why you loved it so much. I think that's such an important part of being human. But then sometimes it's like, are you being pretentious? Like, just enjoy the thing. But I'm like, well, I want to talk about it.
And that is why we have a whole podcast dedicated to dissecting stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
So sociologist Pierre Bourdieu suggested that our tastes are profoundly influenced by social class. I don't think this is anything like revolutionary that we are like uncovering here, but just kind of like backing up what we're saying. He did argue that taste is not simply a reflection of personal preference, but a marker of your cultural capital, helping to reinforce class divisions. And to our point before about Instagram and social media, I think it's just becoming, because we're sharing everything we're doing, it's just becoming more obvious. Like, not saying we invest in these things or do these things because we're trying to portray a certain class, but when you are sharing your life, it becomes easier to like put people into boxes of taste and class, I think.
Yeah. And to that point as well, Bourdieu argues that people of like the higher classes, their tastes are seen as like the universal taste, whereas working class tastes are often dismissed as unrefined or inferior. It's an interesting one because as we're talking about like what you just said, you're like class does have a direct impact with your interests. And I was thinking about the Ed Sheeran thing before, because it's like, I guess in some ways, like to enjoy opera or something like ballet, you might require a certain level of knowledge and education, which will like heighten your experience of experiencing that art form. But to contradict myself on that point, like who is to say that you don't need a certain level of information or like education to understand or enjoy pop music as well? Like everything does require context.
Yeah. Nothing exists in a vacuum. And I really enjoy, like, when we're talking about books and stuff or movies, like, knowing the references. Like, that's genuinely, like, a passion of mine, I think. Like, I don't know, maybe it's being a curious Gemini, but I love, like, knowing where things came from. Like, Harry Styles referenced so many, like, other artists, like Simon and Garfunkel and Paul Simon in that interview with Zane Lowe that I referenced last week. And I just love stuff like that. I'm like, oh, my God, yeah. Like, being able to pick it out is, like, satisfying to me.
Yeah.
But I know not everyone feels that way.
And to that point, like I didn't pick up on those references, let's say, but I can still enjoy Harry's album. Like it's not a prerequisite to have that additional knowledge. And I don't think anyone's saying that. Like, of course, it can further your enjoyment of something, but you're also able to enjoy things without that level of knowledge.
Quickly going back to the point you made about, well, it's Bourdieu's theory about the elite being framed as universal markers of good taste and working class are dismissed as inferior. I saw a great TikTok by the user Alex Ma this morning, and it was about Burberry, the British fashion brand, and how the brand was nearly like ruined because the Burberry check print that they're so famous for, they started selling it in like the early 2000s on like caps and like bags, like really accessible price points. And so like working or middle class people were able to access the brand, and it became like prolific across the UK especially. And then the like wealthy people stopped buying it. We see that all the time. There's so many examples of it. Wealthy people stopped buying it and it was deemed as like, you know, inferior. And then a new designer came in. I'll reference the whole TikTok. It's really good in the show notes. A new designer came in and stopped all that. And then the wealthy started buying it again because it became like
exclusive
again.
Ugh. You're so right. Like this happens all the time, but it's just like so gross because the elite or the 1% want to be seen that way and they don't want to associate with like the underlings of society. To switch things up a bit, we are doing a joint bookmarked recommendation and we're going to deep dive it. So we are both recommending Louis Theroux's new documentary, Inside the Manosphere. We both watched this as it came out. I watched it the hour it dropped.
Oh my gosh.
And it made me feel so unwell.
I texted you last night. I was watching it while I was eating my dinner by myself. And I was like, literally texting you like, I feel sick watching this. Like I was so angry. I wanted to punch something.
So tense. I will say this is the first documentary I have watched of Louis Theroux.
Oh my God.
I'm really bad. I'm really bad at watching docos.
Louis is really great.
National
Like
treasure.
there's so much content out there because he's been making documentaries for like 20, 30, maybe even closer to 30 years now.
He is incredible. Like I love his interviewing style. I really thought it was amazing the way he was handling these interviews. But let's just like take it back to the topic of the documentary. It's about the Manosphere. So this is a term that's been coming around a lot more. But to break it down, it is a broad description for a part of the internet that promotes ideas of masculinity, misogyny, and anti-feminism. My faves. It's a really broad term though. So it incorporates people like podcaster Joe Rogan to crypto bros to gym content and the Tate brothers.
So in this documentary, Louis follows a handful of some of the most notorious content creators in the manosphere. They're peddling like sexism, toxic masculinity, and anti-Semitism to literally millions, sometimes billions of people, which is super scary. So these people include Harrison Sullivan, who's better known as HS TikToky.
I actually died every time they said that. That's his TikTok handle. HS TikToky.
Like that doesn't seem particularly masculine to me. But anyway. Myron Gaines, who I think is one of the most like insidious and scariest of the people that Louis interviews. Justin Waller and Nicholas Ken de Balanthazi, also known as Sneeko, who's actually been banned off multiple platforms. He's recently come back to YouTube, but he's been banned off all of like the mainstream, like Instagram, TikTok, etc., for his like extremist views.
Before this, I actually never heard of any of these men.
Me either, because we're in our little safe bubble where there's no misogyny.
Yeah. And what was interesting, I was watching with a friend of the podcast, Simran, who co-hosts the podcast Broadly Relevant, and instantly, because what we see from these men and the way that they earn money is like they kind of promote these like cheat sheets to win at life and to make a lot of money for yourself outside the quote unquote matrix of like general society. And it was like, oh, this is just male MLM. This is
Literally.
an MLM.
Literally. Well, especially when they're like asking people to attend like their universities and coaching programs, gym programs. One of them, HS TikToky, he like he owns an OnlyFans agency, but then when he's talking to Louis, he like rejects the premise of OnlyFans and like talks down about sex workers and says like if his daughter did that, he'd be like mortified and he'd disown his son if he was gay and all these like conflicting morality question. It's just like, it's really grim watching, honestly.
Yeah. I had never really dived into the Manosphere that much because I think it's quite like intimidating. It's very frightening. And I also asked like how much do you get out of it from knowing what's happening? So I think having a documentary like this, having like Louis take us through it in like safe hands was a good way to go about it. Shall we talk about like what was most impactful or like the favorite parts of this?
Yeah, we'll go through favorites first. If you're a fan of Louis, you know that one of his weapons is essentially like letting people talk. Louis interviewed Scientologists, extremist church people, Zionists, etc. And one of his tactics to get them to explain their points of views is through just like silence and kind of being seen as like the quote unquote dumb British man. Like he's clueless.
So what do you mean?
Yeah. He's like,
what's that?
Yeah.
That? He's so good at it.
And so I think he does that well to these content creators in this documentary. Another thing that he does well is digging into the history and asking why they are this way. Like what is essentially the trauma, like how have they ended up being this extreme and especially degrading towards women as well.
Yeah. I found the parts that featured women one of the more enlightening parts, the way that the first woman is introduced by HS is like, and that's our dishwasher. Oh my God. And there's just like this like blonde girl being like, hi, smiling at the camera and like being like lovely to the interviewers. It was so many jaw-dropping moments. There was a part later on with HS's mum, which was so funny because he has respect for his mum. But
single mum.
Yeah, single mum. And it's just so funny when they show part of the live stream where this is like the most bro-y guy you've ever seen. And he's like, no, mommy, I don't want to juice.
Literally. funny.
And like he doesn't care. Like that was on a live stream. Like it was so funny.
And you can see the light fading out of her eyes at the end when Louis is interviewing him and he's like spouting some of this like homophobic, sexist language. And you can see her being like, don't make me look stupid. But then she does defend him in the end.
Exactly. So it was a bit hard. I don't want to give her all the credit.
No, definitely not.
And there were a few times where partners of the other Manosphere influencers were on screen, and seeing how their dynamic played out was really eye-opening. Like these women who have a lot of love for their partners, and it was so hard to figure out if they believe what they were saying about like the dynamic of like, you know, he makes some money for us, I take care of the kids, we stay in our own lanes, or like he's different to who he is off camera. Like I really love him. It's hard. It was hard to understand like if that's reassurance to themselves, if that's something they fully believe. I mean, when you were talking about Myron, like one of the most problematic figures, like his girlfriend of the time was interviewed there, but then at the end it showed that she had left him, which was amazing.
I do think a lot was left unsaid though. So there was nothing in this documentary really, aside from top level like lines, about how the manosphere and incel culture is impacting young boys and girls. I think one of the scariest parts was seeing like the fans coming up to these guys and their faces are blurred, but you can tell they're teenagers, like 13, 14-year-old boys.
Yeah.
And that was like gut-wrenching to me, because what is the future going to be if that is what like millions of these young boys genuinely think about women, about money, about like what it means to be a man. And I don't think that the documentary goes deep enough into that, which is what a lot of like teachers and parents are really worried about at the moment. I think this could have been like a 3-part series.
Correct.
Easily. Like there's enough Louis said in an interview that he like was filming this for a year, but I think it could have been even longer.
I see what you mean. I think, is this his typical style though, where he like interrogates or looks into the world of these figures themselves and not necessarily like the wider cultural impact of it? I think it was really powerful to see these men in like their habitats essentially. But I think you're right. I would love to have seen this as a multi-part series where we do look at the impact on others.
In a review for The Guardian, the journalist Lucy Mangan felt the same. Lucy said, "There are a few potentially very interesting appearances from the girlfriends and wives in the men's lives. Mostly the relationships are of one-sided monogamy, which means exactly what you would suspect. They are rarely seen for a second time when the men realize how easily they could go off script. We wish Theroux had pursued what this means, along with how the manosphere affects those who have not chosen to be part of it. Schoolgirls and teachers dealing with the teenage boys exposed to this content. The young women who can hardly find men in their circles to date who are unaffected by or reject this insidious stuff." I also really like this interview with Louis by David Gilbert for Wired magazine, and it's called "Why is the Manosphere So Successful?" It's literally a Q&A with Louis, because I did feel like, no, I want to learn more about this. Like I instantly went on to TikTok Louis, to see if he'd spoken more about it. And his answer was really interesting. It says, "I sometimes make the metaphor that everything's become pornography. Extreme content feels like political pornography, and a lot of Instagram feels to me like emotional pornography. It's this feeling that whatever is going to drive your most basic, most primal emotional responses, that's what will get engagement. And once you notice that and you see how, okay, so that's going to actually become pervasive, and this extreme and toxic and lowest common denominator indoctrination will just be rampant across people's social media feeds. That part of our brain, the amygdala, that is responsible for decision making, it feels like that most primitive part of our thinking has been hooked up with the most powerful, most high-tech forms of content dissemination. And in concert, we created a non-stop Las Vegas-style media feed that's actually now bleeding into the power centers in Washington and elsewhere."
The point that he was talking about how like everything is pornographic, I think I've mentioned this podcast episode previously on the podcast, but I would highly recommend. It's called A Dubai Chocolate Theory of the Internet, and that's by Search Engine. And they talk about this concept, which since I learned it, I'm like, it's so true, and I can't unsee it when I'm just scrolling now.
One thing as well that Louis is really good at, well, it ties into the whole like silence thing, but it's like using pity in his interview style and when he goes back through the editing process. And in the end, this is like the final say of these men. Like these men can reject them. They can say like Louis is not prolific or something or influential, but Louis ends with this really strong pity. And in Esquire magazine, Miranda Collinge emphasized this. Miranda wrote, "What is the worst thing that you can say about a Manosphere man? That he's evil or brutish or immoral? No, that would be more or less a compliment. The worst thing you can say is that he's weak, that he's silly, that he's frail, that he is, in fact, a product of an absence of agency, a victim of his own powerlessness. In other words, the direct opposite of what he so desperately wants to project." We also see this in the documentary when some fans of one of the content creators come up to him and they're like, "We're a big fan, like we love you." And then Louis finds them later and like interviews them down on the beach. And you kind of get an inside glimpse into why they're like using this Manosphere content as like a beacon of hope against, you know, record levels of unemployment, depression, mental illness issues, the cost of living crisis. I thought that was an interesting part of the documentary as well.
Really big insight to the people who are like warped into and like sucked into the Manosphere, because we know, like, of course, especially like young men are struggling and facing many issues at the moment, and we're not going to deny that. But to your point about the pity element, because I think you're right, like they definitely did that and they played into that. But there's a part of me that doesn't necessarily agree with it, because essentially we're using toxic masculinity to try criticize these men or like make them feel bad. We're just like reiterating the same points of like, oh, weakness is bad, which is their language. Like, and that's what the Manosphere influencers promote, which just makes me feel a bit like, I get it. Maybe you have to play their game in a way, but it's not like something that I completely like want to get behind.
What do you mean by that?
Because it's like, oh, we're telling these men that looking weak is bad, but it's not. Or is it, oh, like, because I'm thinking about the like people who are viewing this, right? I understand how it feels to the Manosphere influencers, that it makes like, that's going to affect them. Do you think audiences are watching this and thinking that that fragility is negative?
I think no. I think like the Manosphere people are, and that's a point that the Esquire magazine, like Miranda made as well, that like the people who are in the Manosphere are not watching this documentary. Like it's not for them, but also it is giving them more status. Like I was Googling some of them last night. Like I did not follow them obviously, but I was like, who are these people? I now know about them. We're talking about them on the podcast. So it is a level of like notoriety again. But I don't think that in the documentary it's saying like, oh, this is why, like, it's okay. I think it's just giving an insight, which is what Louis does really well.
Oh, definitely. I'm not saying that we should empathize. Oh, I mean, it's not the worst thing, but like, I don't think he's using pity to empathize with these men, but I don't want it to seem like pity is a bad thing, that like, oh, we're seeing these men as like little boys and then they feel weak and then that's a negative. Like, I don't want to think that.
But I don't think that's what Louis is doing. I think he's using pity in the end to be like, essentially like, look at these losers.
Yeah, but I don't want that. Oh, and wait, unless we're talking about like, because I'm picturing when he's talking about them as like little kids and stuff like that. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, they're a loser. They're a child.
But I think that's his angle of like, why did they're a product of this like culture that's changing really rapidly. And so how did they get there? And looking back at the childhood is one way to do that.
Yeah, as Miranda writes in her article, the images playing beneath his voice are from self-filmed videos of Sneeko and Ed Matthews as young boys, making their first forays into the content-creating world that will soon swallow them up. They look young, sweet, vulnerable. They are not to be feared, but to be pitied. They would hate it. Theroux, within the venerable medium of television, has triumphed over the Manosphere men, but as victories go, it's also somewhat hollow. It seems unlikely that they, or at least the other little boys who revere them, will be watching.
So you can watch the Manosphere documentary on Netflix. I really hope this like begins a bigger conversation again. We're already talking about it a lot, but I think Louis doing it is more mainstream, and we will hopefully have more of these convos and like how to combat it.
Definitely. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Culture Club. We will be back in your ears very soon and appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.